for a rider who has tasted the summit of MotoGP. Securing 2 world championships in 2022 and 2023, few situations in a racing career are as challenging as managing external pressure without letting it permeate your own psyche. Francesco Bagnaia, once an undisputed force atop the premier class hierarchy, now finds himself navigating a very different professional landscape as he prepares for the 2026 MotoGP season. The Italian's recent public remarks addressing critics, dismissing much of the negative chatter as irrelevant, are not just bumper sticker platitudes. They are symptomatic of a deep and tectonic shift in the competitive dynamic at the top level of the sport and in his own personal narrative as an elite athlete. Bagnaia's words, delivered with calm firmness, cut straight to the heart of his current predicament. Not all criticism is created equal, and much of what is said online or by pundits does not merit the emotional capital it consumes. It depends on who the criticism comes from, because 90% of it is unnecessary, Bagnaia said, characterizing the majority of negative commentary as time wasted rather than strategic feedback. This stance reflects a crucial psychological pivot. After finishing 5th in the 2025 championship, a stark contrast stood to his former dominance, and being overshadowed by his teammate Marc Marquez's championship campaign, Bagnaia faces a credibility crisis that goes far beyond race results. His performance last season did not merely drop. It raised questions about confidence, direction, and adaptation to the evolving machinery and competitive context of MotoGP. In professional motorsport, where hundreds of seconds define legacies, perception often becomes as influential as reality. For Bagnaia, the task in 2026 is not only to rediscover form on the track, but also to reclaim the narrative surrounding his career. In dismissing unconstructive criticism, Bagnaia isn't rejecting accountability. He's setting boundaries. He specifically highlighted that only constructive criticism feedback that can be listened to, understood, and potentially acted upon deserves attention. The rest, he insists, is noise. This matter of psychological discipline resonates deeply in MotoGP's modern era, where social media accelerates opinion into judgment within moments of a headline. Riders are no longer evaluated solely on telemetry and lap times. Every movement, comment, and meme becomes part of the public dossier. For a rider like Bagnaia, who has known peak performance, the contrast between 2 world titles and recent struggles makes him especially vulnerable to narrative swing. Choosing to focus inward and regulate what stimuli are worthy of attention is a tactical decision in its own right. Yet context is critical. The criticism Bagnaia refers to did not emerge in a vacuum. His 2025 campaign was punctuated by several technical and competitive challenges. Observers and fans alike noted that the new Ducati GP25 package did not suit his riding style as comfortably as prior variants, contrasting sharply with Marquez's ability to extract rhythm and speed regardless of the machinery's quirks. The result was a season that looked uncharacteristically slide-ridden, not the calculated aggression typical of Bagnaia's earlier exploits, but rather a rider chasing confidence. What many onlookers fail to appreciate, however, is that MotoGP success is not solely about raw speed. It is a complex interplay of confidence, machinery harmony, mental resilience, team trust, and the strategic allocation of risk versus reward. Bagnaia's statement urging professional riders to manage criticism wisely signals his acknowledgement of this nuanced landscape. By filtering noise and preserving mental clarity, he seeks to reinforce the internal conditions favorable for performance improvement. The rumor mill and rider market, Aprilia's claim and Ducati's reaction. If Bagnaia's comments reflect a personal internal recalibration, another narrative arc in the MotoGP offseason revolves around his professional future and the intense speculation surrounding rider contracts and team compositions in 2027. Recent statements from key figures, particularly from outside Ducati, have fueled swirling rumors that Bui's place in the factory team may be under threat. At the center of this speculation is Pedro Acosta, the young Spanish rider who has rapidly ascended through MotoGP ranks and impressed with consistent podium finishes, albeit without victories in 2025. Despite finishing ahead of Bagnaia in points and gathering attention as a rising star, Acosta remains contracted to KTM through 2026, and he has publicly emphasized his commitment to focusing on performance rather than transfer rumors. "We are in 2026 now. I want to achieve good results this year," he said, pushing back against talk that he is already eyeing a move to Ducati. Notwithstanding Acosta's restraint, Aprilia CEO Massimo Rivola recently made a provocative remark asserting that Acosta could replace Bagnaia in the Ducati factory team, a statement that ruffled feathers in the paddock and drew a pointed response from Ducati leadership. Rivola described the potential Acosta-Ducati union as a perfect match, emphasizing the young rider's desire for the Italian marque and his impressive adaptability as a competitor, capable of thriving in different machinery. Ducati general manager Gigi Dall'Igna responded with a measured, almost dismissive commentary. Rather than engaging in speculation, he reiterated the brand's priority: locking down a contract with their reigning world champion, Marc Marquez. Dall'Igna framed Rivola's comments as more reflective of his own interests than indicative of Ducati's internal planning, underscoring Ducati's focus on performance continuity rather than wrestling over internet buzz. "I saw that Rivola spoke more about Ducati than about Aprilia. Our goal is to sign a contract with Marc, the reigning champion," Dall'Igna said, stressing that discussions were ongoing, but that the official focus was squarely on securing the championship-winning duo before the new season. This exchange highlights another layer of modern MotoGP, the interplay between rumor economics and competitive strategy. Public comments from team executives often serve multiple purposes. They can rattle rivals, position interests in negotiations, and make subtle signals to rider managers and sponsors alike. Rivola's claim may be interpreted not just as commentary on Acosta's talents, but as a tactical push to raise his market value and remind the paddock of Aprilia's relevance in championship conversations. Conversely, Dall'Igna's measured response reinforces Ducati's disciplined communication strategy, focusing internally rather than amplifying external chatter. What makes these discussions compelling beyond the headlines is what they reveal about MotoGP's evolving competitive balance. Marc Marquez has re-established himself as a dominant figure, flexing unrivaled consistency that brought him the 2025 title and making Ducati a formidable championship favorite entering 2026. Yet beyond Marquez, the competitive field is becoming densely populated, with riders like Marco Bezzecchi, Alex Marquez, and Fabio Quartararo posing threats at different moments. Riders outside the Ducati sphere have chipped away at advantages with improved machinery and adaptive riding approaches. In this context, the narrative of Bagnaia's battles, whether internal, external, or psychological, is intrinsically tied to a larger story of top-tier motorsport competition where adaptability and mental resilience increasingly matter as much as speed. Acosta's own position exemplifies this shift. The young Spaniard's rise hasn't been meteoric solely because of raw talent. It's a combination of mental toughness, sustained performance, and strategic race execution. While he may yet make a factory transfer in the future, his current focus on 2026 results reflects an understanding that in MotoGP, timing and situational readiness are as critical as contractual opportunity. As the 2026 season dawns, the dynamics surrounding Bagnaia, Acosta, and Ducati produce several compelling narratives. Bagnaia's psychological recalibration is as important as his physical preparation. In an era where rider confidence is as visible as lap times, managing criticism, distinguishing constructive feedback from destructive noise, could define his performance trajectory. Rider market rumors are shaping the paddock dialogue, but not always reflecting internal team priorities. The back and forth between Aprilia's Rivola and Ducati's Dall'Igna shows how strategic communication can influence perception even when contractual decisions remain unsettled. The competitive landscape is broader than any single rider, with multiple contenders capable of challenging for wins. MotoGP 2026 looks poised to be a season where depth of field, adaptability to diverse circuits, and mental fortitude across a 20-race calendar will be defining factors. Acosta's presence, whether at KTM, Ducati, or elsewhere, adds intrigue. His emphasis on present performance over future speculation illustrates a maturity beyond his years and reinforces that rider markets are often fluid, driven by performance cycles as much as contractual timing. In professional racing, riders are often defined by the stories told about them, but more importantly, by how they choose to respond to those narratives. Francesco Bagnaia's decision to publicly filter criticism rather than absorb it wholesale signals a strategic shift toward mental clarity that could be as decisive as tuning adjustments or aerodynamic upgrades. Meanwhile, the swirling rumors around rider movements and team priorities demonstrate that MotoGP in 2026 will be a championship not just of speed, but of psychological resilience, narrative control, and strategic communication. As the lights go out in the first Grand Prix, these unseen battles may prove just as consequential as the races themselves.